Rest, she said, and so I will. But where? I asked, and so we go to search. Through time and space and conversations deep and rich, we found the place. It lies within a forest glen, tall beeches standing sentinel, and dogwoods white with redbud trees embrace. A gentle hillside sloping creekward welcomes rest with grace. The small stream at its foot promises quiet lullabies. Overhead, dancing leaves beckon scudding clouds and clear blue skies. Sunshine and moonglow filters down through leaves and limbs, light reflecting off bright white facets of boulder quartz and sparkling water. I will rest well within my chosen hillside and give welcome to sweet wild violets and running cedar for my covers. Grateful to give back to Mother Earth, my mother, I take comfort in her acceptance. Rest, she said again. The circle is complete. And so I do. Finally, peace.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. Now, is that too high or too low?
It's good.
Is that okay? We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
I'm John Perkins, and I just moved down here not too long ago from Laurel Park up by Hendersonville. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I write all kinds of songs about nature and the woods, and so this is one I think is kind of appropriate for our gathering here today. If we were to lose this beautiful country, this beautiful woods, the lakes, the rivers, and all we had is memories, what a sad, sad thing that would be. This is called I Remember the Rainbow. I remember the rainbow, clear waters and streams that flow. I remember the loon's wild call, I remember it all. I remember the prairie grass blades and the way that the wind blows past. I remember the forest song, I remember it all. We are keepers of the land, we are given for the little bit of time we're living. Be careful what you sow, it is gonna grow. Once a change is come, it can never be undone. I remember the rainbow, clear waters and streams that forest song, I remember it all. We are runners in a relay race through time. We pass the world to the next in line. Hoping what you give is not less than what you got. Winning is the same as how we play the game. I remember the rainbow, clear waters and springs that flow. I remember the loon's wild call, I remember it all. I remember the prairie grass, flames that wave the wind blows past. I remember the forest call, I remember it all. In the name of progress, every day a little of the world goes away. If each of us could save a little part, we could make a brand new start. Save a forest, save a tree, see a stream, ah, let it be. Don't let what we have today ever fade away. I remember the rainbow, clear waters, streams that flow. I remember the lone's wild call, I remember it all. I remember the prairie grass flames that wave in the wind blows past. I remember the forest song, I remember it all. I remember it all.
Thank you, John. We're going to sign you up, brother.
Before I introduce Amanda, I'm going to ask Barbara, who wrote that poem?
I'll never tell.
But I will. It was Barbara.
Oh.
It was Barbara. And she promised, hold it for you. Okay. She promised that she let me read ahead of time and promised she would not make me cry, but I did, so I'm still kind of at that moment. But she wrote it about the Kings Mountain Preserve, and she wrote about the spot that both she and I chose. So for me, it was very touching that she worked that in there. So thank you, Barbara. That's beautiful. And Amanda and I both want a copy before we leave. We'll take a picture with our phone. So thank you. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Amanda Peckman, Director of the Kings Mountain Preserve, and to thank her for making the trip this morning. I think it was a couple-hour trip for you, and to share her extensive knowledge of conservation green burial with us. I have prepared a list of conservation green burial cemeteries within a reasonable circumference of our geographical area, and I've put it over on the greeter table for you if you want that as well. I do want to stop for a second and also thank Don Greason for arranging our music and for doing our advertising for this event and for his collaboration in this event. We appreciate it. And Barbara for her presence for partnership in touring the preserve with me. As UUs, we honor each other's differences, and including decisions about end-of-life rituals. And the choices we make provide meaning for us. They can be expression of who we are, how we believe, and may comfort our loved ones. Barbara and I toured the Kings Mountain Preserve together, and there we met Amanda, who provided a thorough and informative tour of the preserve and the facilities. And I will say that the facilities in this case would be a major part of your decision making. They're absolutely beautiful. The visit was joyful and reflective for Barbara and I. For others, it may be a more solemn and contemplative experience. But Amanda's thoughtful and sensitive manner in answering questions and facilitating reflections exceeds expectations. She approaches her work with passion and an obvious sense of purpose, which resonates for me. As I left the preserve, I began to feel that this form of burial is the natural order of things. The natural order of things. I'll say that twice. Returning to the earth, being in nature, Bringing loved ones to a place of peace and beauty to celebrate one's life feels more meaningful than the arrangements I made earlier in life. I hope the information presented today will be useful to your decision-making, at least thought-provoking. And Amanda has given me some words to share with you about who she is, and those are these. Amanda Peckman serves as director of the Kings Mountain Conservation Green Cemetery. Amanda's friends would describe her as a lifelong learner, an empathetic conversationalist, and a passionate advocate. She lives and loves in North Carolina with her husband and their 3 children. You can find Amanda playing outside with her kids, gardening, and learning how to watercolor. You may also find her inside, hosting community gatherings, developing new recipe, deep in conversation, either with people or through reading a book. She is an authentic individual driven by her faith and love. She became interested in all things green burial when she saw how her love for people and nature intersected in the practices of conservation burial. Death has always been a prominent presence in her life. Experiencing the mark of grief on her family from a young age has made her sensitive to the fragility of life. Witnessing goodness spring up from hardship has given her a valuable perspective, and Amanda invites you to join her on her learning journey. She is always ready for a conversation and follows questions with thoroughness and curiosity. And I will tell you from having spent some time with Amanda that all of those things are absolutely the truth of who she is. Welcome, Amanda. It's good to see you again.
That was very sweet. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I loved sharing what we've already shared this morning. It's so sweet, beautiful, and all-encompassing, and I love that. And I want to thank Barbara for that beautiful read. That was very touching to me. And thank you, Anita, for making this connection happen. I think it's so important to have people in every community who create connections, and that's very valuable. So I'll start with a little bit about myself and how long I've been at the Preserve. I've been working for the Preserve for about 2 years, but in June it'll be a year of being the director. And it has been such a good almost year. I love the work. I love being able to meet with people. I love being able to help with services. The time after someone's passing is such a sacred time. And to be able to see people from all different faiths and places of life and different socioeconomic places respond to grief in creative and open-minded ways is one of the largest privileges of my job. So I'm really thankful for that, and I'm thankful to share with you guys a little bit today. So we're going to be talking about what green burial is. I do want to share a little bit about just growing up. You know, that little write-up mentions that grief was always present in my home. My mom lost her mother. My grandmother died when she was 40 years old of breast cancer. And my mom was 20 and I was 2 years old. And so that was always present in our home. And I have so many good memories of my mom taking me to the cemetery where my grandmother is buried. We would do picnics there. It was an old community cemetery. I grew up in the country, so it was just, one of those. There were trees everywhere. It was, historic cemetery community area. And we would do picnics. Large milestones were always talked about at that cemetery. I remember when I went on my first date, my mom drove me afterwards to the cemetery and talked to me about, how important her mom, sorry, I'm gonna cry thinking, but how important her mom was in the years of dating, and just offered, I'm here for you through this, and I'm a safe person to talk to. And then when I got married, my mom took me back to the cemetery again and gave me a necklace, and it was just, and last year my mom took my kids to the cemetery for the first time, and so I've always felt comfortable in that space because I realized my mom gave me the gift of having a relationship with my grandmother. even though my grandmother had passed. And it showed me that death is not a period. And it's not something that ends love. Love goes beyond death. And I think that helped me be more open to that. And I see that consistently in my job. I see people continuing to love, continuing to feel love, and see so much goodness in how people react to that. And that's just beautiful, and I wanted to share that. So we're going to be talking about green burial, but one thing I wanted to say is that nothing that I say is to make anyone feel guilty about any form of burial you may have chosen for a loved one, or may have already chosen for yourself if you've done pre-planning. I believe in knowledge being empowerment, and so all I'm doing is sharing some extra knowledge, but I believe that goodness can hold all kinds of choices. And so I don't want anyone to walk away from this feeling any sense of, oh, I wish, oh gosh, I feel so bad that I buried, my dad or my mom in this way. But I will be talking just factually about how conventional burial works a little bit before we go into green burial, just so that you can understand the contrast of it in a full way. Conventional burial consists of embalming, being placed in metal caskets or other types of caskets, usually lacquered or with polyester inside, and concrete vaults or metal vaults. And all of that has a huge environmental footprint. Concrete is extremely wasteful to the environment. The vaults themselves will trap gases inside of the vault, which can cause a lot of, it causes decomposition to not happen naturally, but it also can cause issues where, you hear news stories about flooding and things popping up, and that's because there's gas and air trapped in those vaults. So that's, it just requires a lot of energy and a lot of space. And there's a little bit of soil science. Are there any scientists in here who love soil science kind of stuff, or gardeners? Yeah. So all of the microorganisms that break down a body live in the top part of the soil, and the top 3 feet of the soil. But when you bury a body 6 feet down, that body is not being exposed to the things that would help it turn into dirt and into soil. So, the space is not efficient for the natural way to be buried. And embalming is a fairly new thing. It started in the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln, I think I shared with you guys when I had just learned that Abraham Lincoln was embalmed 14 times. Because they kept moving him around, and I don't know, who knows how the formula was at that point, but it might not have lasted for as long. Embalming today lasts 14 days, and then it starts to dissipate from the body into the vault or soil or however the burial method is. So that's just really interesting to think about. America is really the only country in the world that has embalming to the level that it does. There are certain things in the Pope that's passed away recently, he had to be embalmed because popes have to be embalmed because they have them on view. But most people in the world are buried naturally without embalming. So here's just a little visual of the environmental footprint of concrete burial vaults. It's a lot of numbers. I'm not a numbers person, so I'm going to just not talk, and I'm going to let you guys look at it. For anybody who is a numbers person, I'm going to move on in 30 seconds. So that's really, I love the last point on here though. It says, planting native flora and hand digging graves eliminates the need for vaults while making more burial space available over longer periods of time. So that's really one of the things. All of our graves are dug by hand at the preserve, and that's something that is important to us. So there's lots of types of sustainable burials, and some are not available for living in certain areas. Some people use cremated remains to make little pieces of a coral reef to be placed on the coral reef. So if you're a beach person and you love the reefs and have heard a lot about the reefs, you know, being like dying, the coral reef is, and the Great Barrier Reef are not the life sources that they once were. Some people are trying to take on a mentality of like, I want to be put into that and be part of making that area thrive again. Burial at sea, cremated remains and full body burials can be done at sea. That's possible. Aquamation is something that's done in some areas. Have you guys ever heard of aquamation? Or it's called alkaline hydrolysis. And it's where you're put into a alkaline solution, the body is, and then everything is dissolved away besides the skeletal structure. And that's the same as cremation. Cremation, everything is burned away, except, so this is water cremation is what some people call it, except the skeletal structure, and then the bone is put into a, they call it like a cremulator is what it's called, what cremation places use. That cremulator grinds the bone into the ashes that you receive. Mushroom caskets are a really popular thing. People send me mushroom caskets like every week. Have you seen this? And they're essentially caskets that are embedded with mycelium and spores so that that goes into the ground and kind of contributes to that mycelium structure that's kind of underneath everywhere in a forest and where we walk. Funeral pyres are a thing, not in most places in America, but that happens, and it's considered more sustainable than cremation. It's open air cremation. And then what we do is called we don't do this. What a lot of places do that can't do green burial is called natural organic reduction, or as you've heard on NPR probably, human composting. It's very trendy right now, especially in California where they don't have areas for burial. All of these, though, what I'll say is that they're all sustainable, but sustainability is a spectrum, right? And I tell people this, you probably heard me say this on the tour, you know, you can live off-grid and do, you know, solar and all of that kind of stuff, or you can go to Starbucks and just use like your one reusable mug that you keep all the time. And there's a whole spectrum of sustainable solutions in those two ways of living. And the same thing is for burial. You know, some people choose to do green burial in a regular cemetery. They just advocate, I want a green burial in this cemetery. Some people choose one of these options, but the most sustainable option is green burial. Green burial is just the way that humans have been doing burial since humans have started burying. So green burial is defined by the Green Burial Council, which if you go to a green burial place, it should be certified by the Green Burial Council. If it is not certified by them, I would look for somewhere else to go, because that certification, it's not like organic stuff where just paying a large amount of money gets it to you. It's like we have to prove that we're doing these practices in the best way. So it's defined as a way of caring for the dead with minimal environmental impact that aids in the conservation of natural resources, reduction of carbon emissions, protection of worker health, and the restoration and/or preservation of habitat. So other people call it natural burial. It takes place using only biodegradable materials. I kind of leave that definition on there, so if I skip, you can kind of keep looking at it as I'm talking. And all of our spots are 3.5 feet deep. So that leaves about a foot for the body and then 18 inches to 2 feet above as what some people call the smell barrier or the, smell zone, different things like that. And it's essentially where wild animals cannot smell. So a lot of people, that's the first thing they think about when they hear about green burial. They're like, am I going to get dug up by a coyote or a bear? Like, is this going to happen? No, that will not happen. They don't even know that you're there because you're buried that far. But it's not too far, so you're exposed to those microorganisms. I wanted to share this quote by Wendell Berry. He has been so influential to me. A lot of agrarian writers have been influential to me. But it says, the care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only hope. which makes me think of your song a little bit. You know, like that's, our hope is in cherishing what is left. It is so easy in today to get so down about what has been taken away, right? I know I've gone through that. I hear about all the things that are happening. I hear about, or I drive past and a forest that my kids once played in is now being turned into apartments. And that just, it breaks my heart. But I can't live in that brokenness. It's appropriate for me to grieve and that to be heartbreaking, but I have to work and live in hope. And I think that this type of burial facilitates that in a good way, because it is a like, okay, I'm saying goodbye to the world, but I'm putting myself in service to Mother Nature and in service to the world that's left, because I hope that it's going to continue and this green space will thrive. A lot of people choose green burial for environmental reasons, but people also choose it because it returns people to the ritual of interacting with the dead that has been outsourced in the funeral industry. So a lot of funeral directors who come out to the preserve, they're like, whoa, we didn't realize that people were still coming to funerals like this. Because their experience is people were not coming to funerals as much. And families are not as involved in the process. A lot of times families will show up the day of the funeral and there's nothing in between for interacting with the person. So one of the things I've noticed is that people have rituals either way. You know, like no matter what your belief system is, if you're religious or not religious, ritual is just embedded in part of being a human being. And actually part of being a higher thinking mammal. Ritual is a part of both elephants and whale communities. So all higher thinking mammals have types of rituals and types of things that mark spaces as different. And so I think, green burial allows for people to bring their rituals and their differences into that space. I tell people the preserve is like a blank canvas, and you come in and you can bring, whether it's very religious, we've had both Jewish and Catholic people buried at the preserve and have had very religious traditional services. And then we've had people who are not religious and spiritual buried at the preserve, and they've had very beautiful spiritual services. And then we've had people who are like I don't believe in anything spiritual, I'm a materialist, be buried at the preserve, and they do things like scatter mushrooms everywhere and and they're very science focused, and it makes space for all of that. And I love that, and I think that's really beautiful. You guys are talking a lot in all of your material about open-mindedness and differences and being together and unified in spite of differences, and I see that at the preserve, is that we're serving all kinds of different people in different belief systems, but there's a unity there because we're all looking at grief together. So I think that that's just really beautiful. I want to share another quote. I love quotes because they say things better than I ever could. Robin Wall Kimmerer is a wonderful writer. If you haven't heard of her, definitely look her up. She said, "Knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond." I always tear up when I read that quote because that's just what I see. I tell people when we bury people, there's a mound that's present over where the body has displaced the dirt, and it takes about 5 to 10 years to settle. And I have envisioned that as, I call it the earth's long embrace. And I just see it as the earth slowly bringing us in and slowly bringing us into safety and wholeness and unity. And it's like our earth loving you in return. So you give your body to the earth, and the earth says, welcome. And I think that's really beautiful. So there are a few different types of green burial cemeteries. There's hybrid burial grounds. They're kind of in conventional cemeteries, and it's because of the demand. The funeral industry is not going to let any demand be unmet by them. So like they're like, people want green burial, we're gonna mark off this section and say it's green burial, even though embalming fluid is probably everywhere in the ground. So it's no vaults, biodegradable containers, and in a regular cemetery. There's also natural burial grounds. It's a green cemetery. They prohibit all the chemicals and stuff like that. And then there's conservation burial grounds, and that is the strictest form of green burial, and that's what we have. So there's extra protections built into that. There is an easement on our property that always will go with the deed of the property. It's not connected to the owner, it's connected to the property, and that will protect it into perpetuity from ever being developed or ever being turned into anything other than green burial land. So, you know, people wonder, is this going to be developed on? We have 55 acres, and it will not, all those 55 acres are protected forever because we have a land trust with Upstate Forever in South Carolina. And then there's land preservation with burial fees are being put into an endowment. So every person who buys from our property, it gets put into a conservation endowment with Upstate Forever, and they, you know, they help us remove invasive species. They study our water for us to ensure that the water continues to be healthy. So they'll have people come out and take samples. And if, you know, if there's something wrong with the water because of an oil spill or dumping waste or something like that, they will do remediation efforts to make sure that it stays healthy and good water for the wildlife and the flora and fauna in the area. We also have hiking trails. We have about 3 miles of hiking trails throughout the property. So it's a space I go to. I'll be on a tour and I'll run into families and they'll be hiking as they visit their loved one. Or I'll run into people who bought their spaces and they're like, we decided to come up for a day and hike and have a picnic. And they're visiting the spaces that they will someday be in, because they were like, we don't want to just be in this space when we're dead. We'd like to be in it when we're alive too. So it's a life-affirming place to be. So that's really special. This little graph, this will be one of the things that I emailed to Anita that she can share with you guys. But it talks a little bit about like the experience of going through a conservation burial and kind of what that entails. But the biggest thing is that it's developing a relationship. So you tour the land, you pick a spot, you're then put in like, you know, until the time that that spot would need to be used. There are events and things happening that you get to be a part of. You're a part of a community even before burial. And then after death, your family is then cared for through you know, us helping them plan the service and talk about the service. I'm almost at every service. We're having a service today that I'm not at, but that's a huge thing, is that I'm present for those services. I help the families with that. Sometimes families think that they're gonna say something and then they can't because the emotion is very large, and so I have poems and things like that prepared to read or talk about so that we can step in and care for the family. Our grave diggers dig the graves by hand, but they also, like, a lot of times we have families who want to fill the grave themselves. And our grave diggers stay present because sometimes it gets really tired and they're like, actually, we can't do it. But sometimes families do the whole thing themselves too. So it's really, we're available, but we're also like always letting the client guide. And you can say, like, the tour was kind of like that. Like, I ask questions during every tour. Do you want to walk this way? Do you want to do this? Because it's important that it's a relationship. It's not a sales pitch, you know? Like, we're in relationship with the land. And it is a privilege to bring people onto the land. I would never want to squander that privilege by turning it into anything else besides bonding with nature and learning. So I talked a little bit about what we have. We're technically 56 acres, but an acre of that is our outdoor facilities, which is like not technically conservation land because it's where our cabin is and it's where the outdoor pavilion is. We're certified by the Green Burial Council. We have beautiful trails and flowers. We have sections for cremation only. We have sections for whole body only. We have a lot of the woods, it's mixed. And a lot of times people will just come out and, I mean, I spent a couple of hours last Saturday with a woman who was looking for a particular tree. And it wasn't just a type of tree, it was like a tulip poplar, but it had to be a particular looking tulip poplar. Like it was like she had an idea in her head, and it was like so cool to see how she's walking through, looking at the trees, and then when she found it, it was like, you know, it was like falling in love. It was like sparks, you know, she found it and she was like, this is it, this is it. And it's beautiful to witness that and be a part of that and let that relationship develop in that way. Here's a map of it to kind of give just a look of what, it's hard a little bit to see the pictures, but we have a forest chapel. It's an outdoor chapel that is open air, so there's no covering, and cedar benches and a cedar arch. We have an outdoor pavilion. It's concrete, and it has some fans, so it's really good for hot days or rainy days. We also are going to build another chapel in the area, and then we have a cabin that sleeps 6 people. And that cabin really sets the preserve apart from other green burial places or even having outdoor facilities, because families, for me, it doesn't set it apart because it's a cute cabin. Like, it is very cute. It was a hunting lodge by a person who owned a bakery in Charlotte. But it's different because it allows a person to pause before returning to whatever it is they have to return to, whether that's work or family or chaos or peace. Every family that buries at the preserve has access to one night staying at the cabin, and a lot of families will take advantage of that after the service. Some do it beforehand, but a lot of families will do the service, people will leave, and then they'll stay. They'll stay at the cabin together. It sleeps 6 people. Some people have brought sleeping bags and had more. It has a fireplace, there's a fire pit, there's an outdoor screened-in porch, there's outdoor cooking, and they just spend time together as a family or as friends. There was a woman who laid her husband to rest recently, and she stayed the night after with all of her best girlfriends, and they had wine, and they did watercolor painting with one another, and it was beautiful because it was like these friends were encircling her and caring for her, but it was after everybody else left, so she wasn't having to perform anymore. There is a sense of hosting and performance when you are the grieving family, and an expectation in that. The preserve lowers that a little bit because it's like everybody has to wear hiking clothes, but it's also that breath and that pause, I think, is really important because it allows people to sit and process their emotions a little bit more before they have to just return to the kind of cycle that we get on in life, right? So I think that that's beautiful. The cabin is a wonderful space. So ways to get involved, visit any green burial cemetery or preserve near you. Take a tour of Kings Mountain Preserve. I love to give tours. It's so fun because I never get tired of the land. So any chance I can to be out there, it's amazing. Hosting presentations, workshops, those kind of things, I love to do that. I love to kind of piggyback with somebody. Like I did one where a woman made, she did a bouquet making class, and I then kind of talked about things not to say to people who are grieving and what to say to people who are grieving. And so it was like, now you know how to make your own bouquet and you can take it to someone if ever, you know, that needs to happen. So I love to do anything like that. Yeah, and now questions. I love questions and answers, so please ask questions. It's my favorite thing. Can I just step up here while we're doing it? I don't like standing behind a podium for questions and answers. So.
What does it cost?
Good question. Yeah, it costs for a cremation spot is $1,995, and then a whole body spot is $3,995. Now you will, like we're just the cemetery side, so there is the like finding a funeral home aspect to it. There are funeral homes probably in different areas that offer green burial. Robertson out of Charlotte offers green burial, and he discounts, he's the same owner as the preserve, so if people are using him and the other and they're far away, he discounts the mileage for the transportation of the body. So that is a good option. I think he charges, I can look it up if I can get my phone.
Well, you don't have to.
But he charges, I think it's around 2,000-ish.
So what's the process from
Yes,
you die and there is a funeral home involved?
yes, so.
Before you. So what's that?
Yes, so the process, and it's the same, oh, you have the cost comparison. Yeah, he has it, it's $1,995 for the Robertson immediate burial. So what they would do is you would call, so either you would call if it's somebody, you know, a family member, or hospice might call if you're in hospice care, or a hospital might call if it happens in a hospital. Whoever makes that call, which is the case with any, this part of the process is the same with any funeral home and any method of burial. You would make that call, and then the person who is assigned to pick you up would pick up the body. Now, the choice is then, the body is then taken by the funeral home and is either put into refrigeration or taken straight to an embalming room. If you're choosing green burial, you're going to be put into refrigeration. Refrigeration can last for up to 2 weeks on a body typically, and so a person has time to plan. It's in a very cold space, and it stops that decomposition from accelerating or really happening. I mean, it's how things work in your fridge, you know, like, so it's the same science there. And then they'll hold on to the body until the time of the service, and they bring the body. Sometimes families will go to the funeral home or the mortuary and help bathe the body or help wrap it. That is, depending on the funeral home you choose, that is something that you are allowed to do. And also sometimes people do home funerals, and that is legal in South Carolina. There's a home funeral alliance that you can look into. They really empower people to do that themselves, and that can be a good option. But when the body has been brought and it's either shrouded or it's put into a biodegradable container, like a woven basket or a wooden casket. So once that happens, the body is brought to us about an hour before burial, and then the service happens and the committal happens. So it's a very straightforward process. And it's very similar to the process of a regular burial, but you skip the embalming. Yes, sir.
I got a question. Is there a marker of some sort that
Yes.
the person is there? And are they included in, let's say, Find a Grave, which is worldwide
Yes.
of everybody that's been buried? So those two questions are separate.
Yes, not every cemetery reports to Find a Grave. Most of the time, people who report to Find a Grave are the families. So yes, families can absolutely report that. We keep track of it by both with a metal marker that we put on every space that is associated with a GPS coordinate. So that is something that we have in our records. And then also there's an engraved river stone, and that's like laser engraved, that has the person's name, date of birth, or date of death, or year of birth, year of death, those kind of things. And that is placed on the spot as well. But we don't do tombstones, like large stones. It has to be like within the regulation of about this big to allow for it not to be a hindering to wildlife, because we're burying where deer and coyotes walk, and raccoons and skunks, and if you put too many stones up, it's gonna block their path. A deer can step right over a river stone. So, yeah. More questions?
Can you talk to us when we were there about, you know, the difference in foliage and what people can do and that sort of thing, if you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we have an approved plant list. It is easier to see it, so if you're really interested in that, I think coming for a tour is super beneficial to have that visual. But we have an approved plant list, and people can plant from that list onto the mounds. We also allow people to bring cut flowers as long as it doesn't have ivy or mint in it, because those things will root. But any cut flower is good. I know, yeah, it's like, we don't want ivy in our areas. It's beautiful in a container, but not at the preserve. So we have, yeah, our list is really extensive. There's a lot of things that most of it is shade loving because it's under a tree canopy. We do also allow 2 trees that also are good to be placed under the canopy, and that's the redbud and the dogwood. So both of those can be buried on top of the person. I do encourage families, if you're planting a tree, to plant it about a year after burial. Decomposition just warms the soil a lot, and so it's better to have that first stage of decomposition finalized before you plant any trees, because they're going to want to put a deep root in, and we don't want that root to get too hot. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Is it illegal to bury somebody in your backyard?
It is not illegal. You can absolutely do that. You just have to have, there's certain permits that you have to get, and certain like paperwork and stuff you have to walk through, and I think you have to have so much space. There's like minimum, that depends on the state too. The minimum of space is varied, but that is totally legal to do. Rutherfordton, North Carolina, there's a funeral home up there that did their first green burial with us, and they said that is super common in their area because of the amount of farms they have, and farmers typically will have a small cemetery on the farm that they bury on, and that's technically a private burial on private land. So, yeah. Yes.
I just want to add, it hurts your resale value.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yeah. Yes, that's true. It does change those things. So, and it's also like not technically protected unless you have a land easement on your property. And that's something that, you know, a body can be moved from its space. It is entirely legal for a developer to come into an area, do the right permits, dig up bodies and move them. That has happened before, and so that's the risk of burying on private land is someday will your great-grandchildren sell the land, and will that body end up being moved to a regular cemetery anyways? So, you know, which is something you don't think about until you hear about it all the time in your job. Yeah, I never realized that happens, so, yeah. Yes?
Well, I would like to see our congregation consider taking a trip together for a visit. And if you're interested, maybe we can have a sign-up sheet and plan that. That's my proposal.
Yeah, I would love that. I love group visits. I'm doing a big tour to, I think it's going to be 37 people are coming with the North Carolina Native Plant Society are coming to take a tour of the property next weekend. So I love that kind of thing, and they're bringing their lunches, and they're going to have lunch together after the tour. So that's sweet. Yeah, I love that. Great idea. Yeah, any other questions? I don't know if you have time for the joys and sorrows. I tried to be a little bit quicker. I wasn't going to say it at the beginning, but I didn't. I hate, for me, joy and sorrow is all about my job. And so I'm like, if you guys want to do that, I don't want to take away from that, because that's, you know, yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, could you give your email for the video, so if somebody's watching this?
It's Amanda@kingsmountainpreserve.com. Thank you. Good question. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. You are all so lovely, and it was so nice to be here today.
So I'm not walking around in Mother Nature the other day out in the mountains. I could very well have been walking around out here at Kings Mountain. Mother Nature, she talks to me. Talks to me a lot. And I probably she talks to Amanda. Mother Nature says, you know, John, been a little greedy in your life. Been chasing that dollar bill. You've been trying to get that new car and that bigger house. Says, you know, everything you really need is right here with me. Mother Nature, she says, you know, I'm a lot of things. There's a lot of things I'm not. Says I am not a dollar bill, I'm not a brand new car. I am not a mansion, 50 rooms, a gate car. I am not a car dancer who goes up things on your sleeve. I am not the things you want, I'm just the things you need. Oh, I am the snow on a mountaintop, I am the reason that the money's out. I am the lightning and the thunder, I am a baby sent to wonder. I am the dark on a starry night, I am the eagle's wings in flight. I am the river on the pond, I am the glow at the break of dawn when the day comes again. With a chance for you, my friend, look beyond the grave, see what you really need. Yeah, Mother Nature, then she says to me, you know, I am not a skybox seat, I am not the Hall of Fame. I am not the one the major leagues all know by name. I am not a king or queen, no politics for me. I am not the way it is, I'm the way it's meant to be. Oh, I am the everlasting forest, I am the deep first springtime forest. I am the tadpole turned to frog, I am the why you love the dog. I am the sweet when the rain is over, I am the sweetness of the clover. I am the song, I am the rhyme, I am the mystery of time when the day comes again. With a chance for you, my friend, look beyond the grief, see what you really need. Stop the drums. Oh yeah. Listen up, Mother Nature's gonna talk to you too.
Say that again? What'd you just say?
I said Mother Nature's gonna talk to you if you listen.
All right, good. Thank you, John. Oh, we've had so much artistic talent shared with us this morning. John and Barbara and John, we're going to sign you up again. And Amanda, thank you so much for coming and sharing. I can only think of a Joseph Campbell saying, as you're following your bliss, it sounds like you're really following your bliss in life. Well, that's great. You know, when you follow your bliss, you give up looking for those big houses and fancy cars and all that. All right, folks, thanks for coming. Refreshments are over there. I hope you have a wonderful spring day. We extinguish the flame of this chalice. Let us follow the light of truth until we meet again.